So, hey everyone, welcome back to Voice of Code and yet another episode of Building the Full Stack System from Scratch. Before we start this episode, I really want to say thank you to everyone who has been following this series from the beginning. We started with understanding monolithic versus microservices, what they are, how they work. Then we scaffold our first microservice using the Kodevy init template. We scaffold our first monorepo. And today, here we are going to build the front end architecture. I really appreciate who has been following this series from the beginning, learning along and building with me. Today, we will talk about how we can scaffold our front end. But before going deep into that, let's understand why front end architecture is most important. So, whenever we talk about architecture, we always talk about backend systems, scalability. Whenever we talk about scalability, we always talk about how our backend microservices are structured. But that is not the scenario. Most developers, whenever they need a front end project, they spawn a little Next.js project or maybe a React project. So basically, if they want client side application, admin panel, landing page, they always spawn a new application. And it is not a big deal, it is not actually a problem, but that always creates something that is shared UI copied into each and every application, authentication logic scattered, and everything, all the libraries that they really can reuse is inside each and every application. So this is great for small projects, but not for scalable systems. So in this episode, we will be going to scaffold our first micro front end along with NX Monorepo, so that likewise in backend we have our Monorepo for all the microservices. We'll be having Monorepo for each and every micro frontends, and that too just with a single command, and that is possible just because of Kodevy preset. So over the few times I have developed something that is an NX preset for Kodevy, and that can literally scaffold some monorepo along with a single Next.js application. And after that, we can add new micro frontends as we have done in the backend using Kodevy preset itself. So without any further ado, let's see that in action and let's generate our first NX monorepo for front end and also our first front end application. So guys, let's start. And before scaffolding the first micro frontend, we can see our npm package or basically preset. So let's go to npmjs.com. This is the official website of npm.js, and let's search here at the rate Kodevy nx next. So you can see this particular preset here. We can search that Kodevy nx Nextjs monorepo template. So this is the preset. Actually, what you get from here is that NX workspace, Nextjs application, UI library. So we have 50 plus shared C and UI components. Then we have the API library. We have authentication library using NextAuth. We have some sort of utils that contains common helpers. We have dockers. So okay, that we will talk about this later on when we'll work on our CI/CD stuff. We have some Azure pipelines that along also belongs to the CI/CD, and we have Tailwind CSS presets. It requires Node.js 20 plus version, so you can use any LTS. So right now I'm using 22, and this is the command we can use to generate our first application. And this is the structure it will give us. So it has all the application, like the workspace name itself. Then inside applications we have all the Next.js applications. Then we have the libs folder where all our reusable components, all our reusable libraries stays, and we have some sort of supporting files that NX needs actually. And we can also add another application here, just the way we can add our micro backends. So this is adding for the micro frontends, and these are the variable generators, and these are the parameter itself. So you can go through it completely. So let's try to scaffold our first microservice. Sorry, not microservice, it's micro frontend. But before that, let's understand about the architecture of how this is working in the front end itself. So guys, here we have the architecture of the front end micro front ends we are building from the Kodevy preset generator, and those are totally into the NX monorepo. So we have the apps layer where we can have n numbers of application. We can always spawn a new application. So admin home dashboard. So this application layer itself is now connecting to each and every shared libraries layer. So we have libs UI, we have libs auth, then we have libs API. So let's suppose if we talk about networking, like communicating with external layers, external APIs, and our micro backends, then we have the server, we have the client layer itself. And all of these layers are being powered by the core layer itself. Then we have refresh tokens. So we have the auth library where we have JWT handler. Inside that, we also have next authentication and integration. We have refresh token, session manager. Then we have, if I talk about the UI layer, we have shared CN UI components. So here we are using shared CN along with Tailwind. Then we have UI hooks. Then we have theme provider. And all of these libraries are talking to actually utils, since that is the core library, the basic level. It contains all the basic stuff of JS. And finally, our micro frontends can call our backend microservices like authentication, third party, some APIs. So this is how the structure looks like, and this is how it's going to be once we will generate our NX workspace using the Kodevy preset. So let's try to generate this NX workspace using this particular command. And if you want to see the repository itself, let me show you. So here we have the Kodevy NX next template, and this is the source code, how it has been built. I'll be making this repository public in some time. Then you can go through this repository, how it's working, how it's actually scaffolding. And this is the readme.md section. And inside SRC, we have all the stuff required to generate any sort of microservices, not microservices, it's micro frontends, and the NX workspace itself. We have generators, then inside generators, we have app, init, preset. So all of these are involved in generating the NX workspace along with a single micro frontend. And after that, we can add more micro frontend. So now let's just try to scaffold our first micro frontend, and that too along with the NX monorepo. So we'll be copying this command from npmjs.com where we have our Kodevy NX preset. So we can just copy this command and we can paste it into the terminal. So right now I am inside this directory Kodevy where we have all this stuff. We'll paste this command here. Wait a second. We'll paste this command, and it says npx create nx workspace my project dash dash preset equal to @Kodevy nx next. For my project, we can just replace it with any name. So right now I'm having it as Kodevy core web 3.0.0, and I'm just marking it as copy since I already have this directory. This is the name of directory you want your complete NX workspace to be. You can give it any name. Okay, something is wrong with the name itself, so we cannot have bracket here. So I'll just say 3.0.0 copy. That's it. Now let's NX will actually create your workspace. It will install dependencies using npm, and after that it will create your workspace, and it will ask for specific things from you. So we have to do that. So it says first the thing, what is your npm scope? So the npm scope is basically whatever you want your libraries to be shared or basically imported from. So right now you have to give it as an organization name. So if we talk about the micro front backend we have, so in the micro backends, we provide the organization name. In the same scenario, we have to provide the organization name here, and that will be used as the import statement from the library itself. So in this case, I am using as Kodevy @Kodevy, and @ is important here. See, so this is how NX works. You have to provide the organization name along with @symbol. Then it will ask for the first application you want to be there in your NX workspace. So right now I'm having home, and that's it. It will install some dependencies. So right now it's actually running npm install command, and you will not be able to see that until unless you actually run the command from verbose itself. So if you want to see each and every detail, you can run the command from npx create nx workspace, the project name itself, preset @Kodevy nx next, and after that double dash verbose. So verbose will give you each and every detail of what that particular command is doing. But here we can wait until the npm install command gets finished, or we do have another stuff. We can just like click control C here. It will just cancel that, and after that we can also, like, we can manually run the npm install command. So let's clear it and open that particular project in Cursor. So here we are. We have our newly generated NX workspace project in Cursor. So we have this directory structure. We have .nx folder, which NX needs in local system. We have .vs code. Again, this is just some sort of settings for VS code. We have the apps directory. Inside we have all the Next.js applications. Then we have the libs directory where all our libraries resides. We have node modules that always node uses after we install dependencies for npm and node. We have a script folder, we'll talk more about it, and then we have some sort of files. So let's first do one thing. Let's run npm install here since we have just left it in the mid, and let's see, once it gets completed we can go through these directories. So we have completed the npm install step, and now we can quickly look into our directories, the folder structure it provides us. So let's first talk about the apps layer settings, and inside the apps we have this first home application. So then let's talk about libs section. We have a directory libs, and inside libs we have API folder. API is just another project in Nx, and it is not a complete application. It is basically a library. If I talk about this project.json, so it, you can see it in each and every project or maybe libraries or application itself. So project.json tells Nx like what specifically this project is all about. What is the type? So we can say project type is library. It is not an application. What is the source root? What is the name? And then we have some sort of targets. So targets Nx uses always to run a particular stuff. And we have this src. Inside src we have first next.auth.d.ts. This is a declaration file in javascript and also in typescript, and this is basically used for next auth. So we are just overriding some sort of next authentication interfaces. So right now we are overriding jwt user and session as per our needs, and this is the basic need for each and every micro frontend. Inside the lib section, we have one client folder. So in client, we have a client API client. So client API client means that the API client that will be actually calling the APIs from the client side. That means the browser side itself. And we have the client API transport that will be being used as a transport by other applications. So we'll be calling this particular function to get the API client for our browser, and we have an index.ts which will be used for exporting this client API client. Then we have the same scenario for servers. So we have server API client, and then we have server API transport. The only difference between client API client and server API client is that both the API clients actually uses different, or basically works on different mechanism to actually get the token. So inside the server, the token gets from the cookies itself, as server components can directly access the cookies. But in client side, they cannot directly access the cookies, and they are actually calling the next auth APIs. And after calling the next auth internal APIs, the cookies gets distributed, and now the browser can access the cookies and get the token. So this is the only difference. And then we have server API transport, and in the core we have our core API client. This is our core API client which actually performs all the step. That means building the URL, building the headers, creating a request and logging it, then actually transforming the JSON into a particular response. So we have our API response here as well. That means we have a particular structure that our micro frontend can always deal with. In the micro backend, we have this structure as well, and that is the reason in the micro frontend we have also this API response structure. So we are not just guessing that okay, this could be the JSON itself. We are actually making it as in a structured way, so that front end and back end always knows about what they are or basically exchanging between each others. We have specific classes for API errors, and we are tracing them here along with timestamp and stack trace in the development mode, so that we can learn more about where that particular error gets traced, or we can more debug into it. We have some API configurations. That means some any sort of applications that are in the apps directory can pass the base URL, the global prefix, and the version itself. Was all about the API library. Let's talk about the auth library. Inside the auth, we have again all the files which we need for a specific Nx library. In the src, we have configurations, we have auth options. So next auth really needs this file auth.options, and it contains what will be the credential provider, how the token will get carried to the particular front end, and after that, how if any front end calls the next auth to get the token or session cookies, how it will distribute that. Then we have some models regarding the authentication itself. So auth response and authenticated user, we can actually later on inherit this and get, or basically make more into this. I mean, more fields in the user itself. And we have just refresh access token function here that will be able to actually refresh our token later on. So we'll be using that later on. Let's talk about the UI library. So UI again has all these components, and in the SRC we have styles. So we have all the base.css, whatever we need. We have all the tailwind.css. We are just importing the base components and utilities. And then we have some sort of tokens which we can always override, but these will be provided by the base. So any application can override or basically extend these tokens, but they always be having these tokens to maintain uniformity and consistency across all the applications. If I talk about libs, in lib we have all the components which we need in ShadCN, and we can also add more into top of this. We can always have more components, whatever we want. Right now we have I think 20 plus components, some sort of hooks and some ShadCN theme. So we have theme provider, we have theme toggle, we will be using that, and then we have the toaster provider. So it will be providing the toast functionality in our applications. Then we have the base library as utils, and it contains all the basic stuff of JavaScript. So we have async index.ts, retry, sleep.ts. Then we have some date utilities, formatting, and checking the expired date. We have some env which we'll be going to use later on. We have some guards if this is a browser, if this is defined. We have some sort of object functionalities, extension on object, kind of deep merge we want, shallow copy and deep copy. Then we have some sort of extension on string classes, so capitalizing, slugify, truncate, and some sort of URL extensions like building the query string, encoding it. So this is the utils, and util library is always utilized by all the API, all the libraries itself. This is the common library for each and every application, and also the libraries itself. Now let's talk about the scripts. So this script part is basically, this is basically a script which I have written by myself, and this is a custom script. I'll be explaining this later on once we'll get into the CI/CD phase. Since this is always needed there, we'll be creating a Next.js standalone project and then deploying it into our own server. So we will need this script there. So let's just skip it for now, and I'll explain each and every line of this script later on. Then let's talk about the files from the last itself. So first we have the TypeScript configuration.base, and this base TypeScript configuration will be used by each and every libraries and applications. It just contains the basic rules and along with the paths. So we have all the path here for each and every library, so that other application can use it using these paths. And this depends on totally whatever your scope you provide during generating the NX workspace. Then we have this readme.md. You can just go and check it out. We have package.json. So in package.json, we have all the scripts which we need during development. And we can also use other script from the project.json of specific libraries and applications. And also it contains all the dev dependencies and all the dependencies, whatever our application needs. This is the log file for package.json. Then we have nx.json, which is generated by nx and used by nx itself. We don't need to worry about this. This template provides a Docker file, so we can use this Docker file later on once we will deploy this application to our server. It's a part of CI/CD, so I will explain it later on. This one as well, Azure pipelines.yaml. This is basically a default Azure pipelines script you can see here, and I'll also explain it later on once we'll go to the CI/CD phase. Then we have some prettier configuration, some git ignore files, and some base configuration for ESLint RC, that means for linting. So this is all about this workspace which Kodevy preset generates. Now let's talk about the apps folder. So inside apps, we have just home application which we have generated. Let's talk about that. Inside the application, we have tsconfig.json, which is extending the base configuration file and providing its own configuration for TypeScript. We have the tailwind configuration. So this is also here in each and every application. For this application, we have readme.md, we have project.json along with some targets. So we can call this serve build standalone, which will make our standalone build. And it is actually utilizing the script I just showed you. We have the start type check. We have some configuration for post CSS. Then we have some next config, and inside next config, we are actually telling that The output will be standalone so that we can deploy it later on in our own custom server. We have the declaration file for next auth. This is needed since if we will type JWT, it will be utilizing JWT from next auth until unless we declare this file, so that it gets the overridden copy of what we are declaring here. Then we have some linting for ESLint. And we do have two things here, .env.production, .env.development. And I will tell you later on how these will be scattered once we will deploy this to a particular server. We have a public folder, so here we always have our images and some sort of fav icons if we want to make something available to public. Then we have a network folder where we have client API client. That means we are creating a client API client from our libraries itself. We are providing the base URL, global prefix, version, and unauthorized route. And then we have a server API client. So we do have two API clients for each and every application. So server components will use this API client, and client components will use this API client, the client API client. Then we have the components itself. So right now I just have test components. So we'll be creating each and every component in the components directory, and we'll be naming them as test components or maybe home components, something like that. And inside the app folder, we have first API. So right now we just have route.ts for next auth. It specifically requires a route.ts so that next auth can do its own stuff using the next auth authentication options, which are there in the authentication library. We do have our page.tsx, the landing page, and it is actually getting the test component. So we will be using this convention. So we'll be declaring the page.tsx here, and after that doing our own server-side stuff. We will be propagating or navigating it to the client component, which we will create in the component directory. Then we have the layout.tsx. So it is actually importing all our fonts. So right now we are using JetBrains Mono, and then we have some sort of meta here, and then we have our theme provider from the libs itself. And then we also have the toaster so that we can actually use the toast, and then it is actually loading the page.tsx. And most importantly, we have global.css, which is actually importing stuff from the libs itself. And if we want to override it, we can override it. So let me just quickly copy paste the code from my another project, since I don't have much idea about the CSS files and all. And also you can just quickly change the order of these. So first tailwind.css, then tokens, and then base. That's it. This will be the order, so please change it. And after that, I have copy pasted some code from my another project where I want certain specification or branding colors. This is what I searched across the internet and got that. So you can, if you do have much knowledge about CSS, you can always customize your own CSS, and the base is provided by the libs itself. So this is how the structure looks like once we generate our NX workspace along with the first micro frontend using the Kodevy preset. Now let's try to run this application using the NX command, and let's see what we got. So we'll quickly open the terminal, and as you can see inside the apps we have home, then we can go to project.json, and we have this serve target. So what it will do, it will actually use the executor as the next server of NX. That means NX has its own plugin of serving the next applications, and it says that the build target will be home build. That means it will be actually executing this target, and it will be using the port 4000 for this application. So let's just run it. So the command is npx nx serve and the name of the project. That means this is the project name, home. This is the serve, is the basically the target we want to run, and npx nx is the command to run nx. Let's try to hit this. And as you can see, we got our first micro frontend up and running here. And this is the default page. And I will copy this URL and we'll open it somewhere else. Let's try to open it here. So this is the first micro frontend we have been designing or building from the Kodevy preset itself. And the landing page is basically about the color palette, whatever we are using, so that you don't get confused about what colors you will get in your application. So these are the color palettes, the button, how they will look like. Then we have some sort of form elements, tabs, how it will look like, typography, dialog component. So this is how your dialog will look like, and this is how the toaster will come out. If it will have certain issues with the APIs. We have all the toast here, so success, error, loading. Then we have info, custom toast, whatever you want to customize, and we have certain sort of theme information here. So right now we are using set cn along with tailwind. We have the next themes as theme provider. We are using enter and JetBrains Mono as the fonts, and we have HSL value wise CSS variables as a color format. This is something to go more about into the CSS. Now we can click on the theme toggle button and it will provide us the dark theme. This is how the application will look like in the dark mode. Let me refresh it. And this is how each and everything will look like in the dark mode. So this is the success toast, error toast, info and all. So this is we running our first micro front end using Kodevy preset with an NX monorepo in live and seeing how it will behave. And let's try to change the colors. So let's suppose in global.css, I really tried my own colors. Let's remove them and let's see what the application provides from the base itself. So right now we don't have any colors. And this is how it will look like if you don't provide any colors. So basically I have adopted white and blue as the primary branding of your application, and you can customize that using global.css. Now each and every micro frontend, that means any application that will be there in the app section, can have its own global.css, and in the meantime overriding things from the base itself, that means from the libs itself. And also you can see all our micro frontends as per our micro backends, they are all scattered. Not They are actually not scattered, they are organized in a single monorepo. They are reusing the libs here, so we are not actually reinventing the wheel, we are not actually repeating ourselves. We are always conserving those concepts, and we actually also have so many configurations that are applied globally on each and every applications. So this is what we call structuring and architecturing the front end itself. And this is the benefit of using NX as a workspace and using Kodevy as a preset, so that we can quickly generate applications in no time just with a single command. So today we didn't just create a Next.js application, we structure a complete structured front-end system, and totally with the help of NX workspace and Kodevy preset. So if you are following this from the complete backend microservices, now you can see the complete picture forming in front of you. So microservices with the help of Kodevy template in the backend side, and that too with the Monorepo, and now micro frontends in the NX workspace, and this is also in the Monorepo. So this is actually the real architecture step we were going to take, and we have already done the hard step. Now in the next episode, we will be going to work on the real practical feature. So we will be actually connecting this front end with our backend microservice, calling the APIs using the API client we have, reusing the libraries, UI libraries, adding some more ShadCN components, and later on we will see each and everything in action. So stay tuned. Keep learning and keep watching Voice of Code. And thank you so much for giving me this motivation. I'll be giving you more insights on architectural steps, not just service level tutorials. So keep watching and goodbye for now.